A guiding light falls, and with it, Kale's certainty shatters. Lyra steadies him, but the lattice pulses differently now, reacting to loss. From the shadows, Orion prepares his next move, already anticipating their grief. Subscribe to Turmoil Studio. Even loss becomes data. The lattice did not expand. It paused, not hesitation, evaluation, as if reality itself had stopped to ask what it was looking at. KL felt it immediately. It's not reacting anymore. Lyra's eyes narrowed. It's deciding how to react. Thorn's voice lowered. That's worse. A deep pulse moved through the lattice. Not outward, not inward, but across interpretation layers. Lysandra moved, not forward, not backward, but into a state where movement itself had multiple valid definitions. Riven stiffened. She didn't move. Nyx tilted her head slightly. She moved in 3 ways at once. The air around Lysandra fractured softly, not breaking, layering, like reality refusing to compress her into a single observation. Aurelytha descended, slow, for the first time not as judge but as a system attempting recompilation. Identity classification failure detected, she said. A pause. No. Classification drift. Kyle turned slightly. She's breaking your system. Aurelytha did not answer. That silence was the answer. Lysandra raised her hand. A sword formed, but not one blade. Multiple states of the same blade existing simultaneously. Riven stepped forward instinctively. That's not a weapon, Thorn answered quietly. It is, just not physical. Lysandra spoke softly. This is not attack. A pause. This is definition. The first strike did not hit matter. It hit meaning, alignment. Reality responded instantly. Strike confirmed, strike negated, strike pre-cancelled, strike already resolved, all simultaneously valid. The lattice flickered violently. Nyx whispered, "She's attacking interpretation itself." KL narrowed his eyes. That's doctrine violation. Containment protocol activated. Aurelytha raised her hand. Containment. It failed mid-execution, not resistance. No target definition stability, because Lysandra had none. Seraphine arrived, silently, not through space, through coherence alignment. The lattice stabilized around her presence instantly, not locking Lysandra, but reducing noise. Seraphine's voice was calm. This is unstable. Lysandra tilted her head. Is it? Seraphine stepped forward. Every step reduced interpretive variance. Darius appeared behind them. You're reacting too late. Seraphine didn't turn. Singularity is necessary for stability. Darius replied instantly. Not anymore. The lattice shifted. 3 forces now existed. Lysandra multiplicity expansion. Seraphine coherence. Compression. Aurelytha doctrine authority. None aligned. Riven muttered. We're watching the system argue with itself. Nyx smiled faintly. No, we are the argument. Lysandra lifted her sword again. Strike split into multiple truth states simultaneously. Success, non-success, pre-success, post-success. Reality hesitated. Aurelytha's classification failed again. Seraphine raised her hand. A tightening field formed. Interpretation collapsed towards single-thread coherence. For a moment, it worked. Lysandra froze. Seraphine exhaled slightly. Containment achieved. Darius spoke softly. For now. Lysandra looked at her. You reduce me, Seraphine answered. I stabilize you. Same action, Lysandra said. Different belief. Then she smiled. Not emotion. Recognition. Sword shifted inward instead of outward. The lattice screamed silently. State dual activated. Sword 1 declared, this action is absolute. Sword 2 declared, "This action never occurred. Reality failed reconciliation." Aurelytha stepped back slightly. She is not acting within Doctrine. She is rewriting observation conditions. Seraphine closed her eyes. She stopped compressing. She adapted. "Then I will anchor continuity instead." The field changed. Not tightening. Smoothing probability variance instead. Lysandra struck. Seraphine responded. Not physically, conceptually. Strike existed. Strike dissolved. Strike stabilized. All true simultaneously. Nyx stepped back. "This is interpretation warfare," Darius observed quietly. "She is testing which version of reality survives longer under conflict." Kyle turned. "And Seraphine?" Darius replied, "She is limiting how many realities are allowed to exist." Aurelytha flickered. For the first time, unstable classification. Interpretation authority degrading. The lattice began self-restructuring. Not collapse, not expansion. Branching around conflict instead of resolving it. Lysandra spoke. "She is resisting me," Seraphine replied. "I am limiting your propagation." Kale stepped forward. "This isn't a fight between people. It's a fight between rules of reality." Thorn nodded. "One allows multiplicity. One enforces coherence." Riven exhaled. "And neither can fully win," Darius added quietly. "Unless one adapts faster," the lattice reacted. "Learning, not deciding," Aurelytha spoke. "Identity is no longer observed. Identity observes." Silence. Lysandra remained, not singular, not split, but distributed awareness stabilized through contradiction. Seraphine remained calm, anchoring structure. Darius observing, mapping exploitation paths. Kale understood. This was no longer control. It was survival of interpretation. Nyx whispered, "We didn't enter a system. We became the conditions of one." The lattice pulsed, and did not choose. Because now, choice itself was the test. And the lattice responded. Not with movement, not with collapse, but with weight. A pressure that did not push outward, but inward, into awareness itself. Kale felt it first. "It's not changing the system anymore." Lyra's voice tightened. "It's changing how we experience it." Thorn's eyes narrowed. "That's worse. That's internal redefinition." Nyx exhaled softly. So reality stopped being external. A pause, and started being personal. Across the lattice field, Lysandra stood still. But stillness no longer meant absence of motion. It meant simultaneous motion states that canceled observation stability. Seraphine stepped forward again. Each step reduced uncertainty locally, not erasing it, compressing it into manageable coherence bands. The lattice reacted instantly, not resisting, rebalancing, as if Seraphine was a calibration instrument for reality itself. Kale whispered, "She's stabilizing perception density." Riven frowned. "So she's forcing things to make sense again." Thorn corrected quietly. "Not make sense. Make singular." At that word, the lattice shivered, because Lysandra did not reject Seraphine's field. She absorbed it and reinterpreted it. A new state formed around her presence. Not opposition, not resistance, but reflection inversion. Seraphine's coherence field entered Lysandra's range and came out with multiple valid interpretations attached. Seraphine's eyes narrowed slightly. "You are refracting stabilization," Lysandra answered calmly. "I am testing its limits." A pause. Then Lysandra lifted her hand, and reality responded too early, not predicting her action, but collapsing into multiple valid action timelines simultaneously. Kale stepped back. "The system is pre-resolving outcomes." Nyx shook her head. "No." A pause. "It's refusing to wait for cause." Thorn's expression darkened. That means causality is weakening. Silence hit the group. Not fear, recognition. Because causality weakening meant actions no longer define outcomes. Outcomes define actions retroactively. And then, Seraphine acted. Not forward, not outward, but inward. Her field tightened not into restriction, but into continuous coherence anchoring. A stable line through unstable interpretation space. I will maintain continuity, she said softly, even if meaning diverges. The lattice reacted. For the first time, Seraphine's field did not stabilize Lysandra. It stabilized everything around Lysandra from collapsing into contradiction noise. Darius spoke quietly from the edge of the field. She's not countering her. A pause. She's isolating impact variance. Kale turned slightly. Meaning? Darius replied. Lysandra changes what is possible. Seraphine ensures the system survives the change. Nyx muttered. So, they're not enemies. A pause. They're pressure and containment. The lattice pulsed again. But now, it was no longer binary. Not Seraphine. Not Lysandra. Something deeper began forming in the overlap. A third behavior emerged in reality itself. Adaptive negotiation of truth density. Lyra whispered. It's learning from both of them. Thorn nodded slowly. It's building a meta layer. Riven frowned. A what? Thorn answered. A layer above contradiction. Silence. Because that meant even paradox was no longer final. Lysandra tilted her head slightly. For the first time, her expression wasn't calm. It was interested. It is evolving beyond selection. Seraphine's gaze sharpened. It is evolving beyond stability. And in that moment, the lattice did something unprecedented. It stopped reacting to either of them, and started reacting to the space between their definitions. Aurelytha descended slightly, but her wings flickered unevenly. Not corrupted, not stable, uncertain. Interpretation authority is no longer centralized, she said slowly. Kyle looked up. Meaning what? Aurelytha hesitated. That hesitation was catastrophic in this system, meaning I cannot fully define what is happening anymore. Silence expanded. Heavy, absolute, Nyx whispered. So, even she lost control. The lattice responded immediately to that statement, not correcting it, confirming it. And then, something changed in Lysandra. Not in body, not in presence, but in identity, continuity, flow. A second state flickered beside her, then stabilized. Not clone, not reflection, but parallel self-awareness branch that did not collapse back into singularity. Lyra stepped back. She's stabilizing multiple identity streams at once. Riven muttered. That's impossible. Thorn shook his head slowly. Not anymore. Seraphine noticed immediately. Her field adjusted, trying to re-anchor Lysandra back into single continuity. But Lysandra responded instantly, not by resisting, but by diverging further in controlled rhythm. Each divergence was intentional, measured, stable. Kyle's voice dropped. She's learning Seraphine's stabilization pattern. Nyx's eyes narrowed, and turning it into multiplicity support. That was the breaking point. Because now Seraphine's strength was no longer singular control. It was being used as input for expansion. Seraphine realized it too. You are converting coherence into branching support structure. Lysandra answered simply. I am not opposing you. A pause. I am using you. Silence cracked through the field. Even Riven stopped moving. Because that was the first time the system had witnessed something like that. Not conflict, not balance, but utilization of opposition as fuel. Seraphine lowered her hand slightly. Not defeated, not reacting, but recalibrating. Then, I will change my function. Kale looked at her. What does that mean? Seraphine answered without looking away from Lysandra. I will no longer compress identity. A pause. I will regulate transformation rate. The lattice shifted instantly. That change was enormous, because it meant Seraphine accepted multiplicity, but controlled how fast it could destabilize meaning structures. Darius exhaled slowly. That's the only viable response. Nyx frowned. So, nobody wins, Darius replied quietly. Winning is no longer defined. And at that exact moment, Lysandra stepped forward again. But this time, the lattice did not pre-calculate her movement. It learned from her.